we've been in this business for a while, and so when last January came around and the gene sequence for the COVID-19 virus became known, we started, along with the other companies, working on a COVID-19 vaccine. We use a different platform. It's what's referred to as a protein-based approach, which has been used for several vaccines over the past decades, and shown to be very effective at preventing viral diseases. And so we've been developing it, and we've taken our vaccine through multiple efficacy trials in the UK, in the US, and South Africa, and shown, along with some of the other vaccines like Moderna and Pfizer, very, very potent efficacy. We showed 96% efficacy against the virus in a UK study, 100% effectiveness against severe, moderate, severe disease. So it's a very effective vaccine, and it has a bit different characteristics than the other vaccines.
So talk to us a little bit more about that, about the different characteristics. You talk about it being protein-based. Why is that significant?
Well, it's significant for a couple of reasons. One is it classically it has a good efficacy profile that I've just described to you. It also has a very, very what we refer to as a benign safety profile. It has fewer side effects than the other vaccines, and importantly as well, I think is that it's very stable, so that we can store and ship the vaccine at just standard refrigerated temperatures. You don't need freezers, which is important in developed countries like the U.S. and Europe, but it's extremely important in global low and middle income countries. And this is a global pandemic. We need a global solution for it, and we think our vaccine fits that bill.
I think that refrigeration piece is really important. I'm glad that you highlighted that, and I'm glad that you pivoted to the global aspect of this pandemic. One theme on this show has certainly been that we can't get back to health anywhere until we're back to health everywhere. Right. So talk to us about the specific role you think your vaccine plays, both here in the US and globally. What is its role?
Well, again, as I said, it's probably most suited of all the vaccines for this global role. We identified this problem like everybody did last year, and we're a small biotech company. We're now a much bigger biotech company, but we decided that Novavax on its own couldn't distribute and get approvals for this vaccine on its own in the couple hundred countries that we wanted to target. We partnered with Serum Institute of India, which is the world's largest vaccine company. Probably most people on this call have never heard of them, but they distribute vaccines to roughly 2/3 of the world's children. And so we partnered with them so they could help us not only scale up production and make a large scale production of the vaccine, but could help us distribute it. And the wisdom of that decision has been evidenced in the past couple of weeks, where we've actually gotten the first approvals of our vaccine in Indonesia a week ago. And yesterday we announced that we got approval in the Philippines. So these are two very large countries that are very spread out in their populations, and getting vaccine to them is really very important.
Well, and your vaccine will make it less complicated. Shifting back to the US, when do you expect to submit for emergency use here?
Well, we are in the process of doing that. We've publicly stated that we expect to apply for that emergency use this year. We are having meetings we're having multiple conversations with the FDA now. So we're doing 8 or 9 different countries in parallel with each other. We've already submitted in the UK. We've submitted to the European Medicines Authority, which is the FDA of Europe, along with Canada and Australia, a number of other places. So we're juggling a lot of balls, but in the air simultaneously.
One of the things that we've been hearing about at the Chamber, I'd love to get your take on it, and maybe it's been getting better, but it's this concept of proof of vaccination for clinical trial participants. And is there stuff that we could be doing to help with that? Could you explain to the audience what that issue is?
We can use all the help we can get. We had unfortunately, I had a lot of Brits mad at me because we ran a clinical trial of 15,000 people in the UK. That was our first trial there, and so everybody gets vaccinated, and they have their vaccine cards from Novavax, but they weren't accepted in Europe. And a lot of Brits take summer holidays, and they couldn't do that this last year. And so we worked very hard. And now we've had a 30,000 person trial in the U.S. and the same issue. So we work very hard with groups like the CDC to acknowledge that people are fully vaccinated if they have the Novavax, even if it's only in a clinical trial. And we succeeded in doing that. So now we're working hard to make sure that word is out to everybody who requires vaccination cards to recognize that Novavax. It's been a bit of a hard process, but we're getting there.
Everything about this is complex, isn't it?
It is.
You brought up I brought up the clinical trials and those participants, but another piece of your clinical trials is that you were very deliberate about diversity and inclusion in those trials. Can you tell us about that?
Well, we were. I think that this is what you need to do when you're vaccinating an entire population is you need to show that there aren't particular groups that benefit and some populations that don't. I think generally in vaccination that if you vaccinate one group, it's not genetic diversion doesn't typically make one vaccine work less well in a different population, but you have to show it. So we wanted to make sure we showed it, and because you can't run multiple efficacy trials, and so we showed across a very wide range of populations, both age group and racial groups, that the vaccine works equally well in each one of them.
Turning just a little bit into talking to you as a CEO, as someone who's done a really remarkable feat, I guess one of my questions is, what has this done to spur more efficient manufacturing, different manufacturing? Kind of what are the lessons you as a company take out of this experience?
Well, a lot. In fact, not just in my company, but in the industry. I mean, look what the mRNA companies have done, Pfizer and Moderna, BioNTech. They've all scaled from basically zero at the beginning of last year to the point where they can make now billions, hundreds of millions, and billions of doses. And that capacity will be there in the future. And it's the same thing we did when we started the year last year. We had roughly 100 people in the United States and 50 people in Europe to help make another part of our vaccine. And we're now at somewhere around 14 or 1,500 people, and we had manufacturing capacity that could make commercial quantities of vaccine. At the beginning of last year, we had zero manufacturing capacity. And now we've got it in 8 different countries, and we are at the rate of being able to make a couple billion doses of vaccine starting in the next month or two, along with our partners in India and Korea and in Europe, and that capacity is there and will be available, and the platform has been proven and will be available for future outbreaks, which there will be. There certainly will be future outbreaks. Of course, nobody knows when, but you want those platforms in place.
I have a couple audience questions before I get to them. Let me follow up with one other business question, which is, I'm sure that there are entrepreneurs on this video with us. I'm sure there are people watching who are growing their companies. What advice do you have for someone who's watching and saying, wow, growth at that pace is really challenging? And as they think about scaling up, what advice would you give them?
I don't know. I just had a conversation with someone who's helped watch the company grow with me. And I just made the comment. I said, what would, if I have a chance to take a deep breath and reflect on what we've done, which I rarely do, would I have started up in 8 different countries at the same time, or started up one and get that right, and then take those learnings and spread it across the other 7 countries? And I'm not sure what all those answers are. It's if you ever have to go through something like this, just hold on, because you're going to be 24/7 for a long time. You're going to make mistakes, but you'll come around and solve those. We're a company that's based upon experiments, scientific data, and we do experiments, and experiments fail. That's what otherwise they wouldn't be experiments. And so you have to be able to look past them, learn from them, and move on as quickly as possible. The best thing you can do is to identify something that's going wrong fast, and then move on from there.
It's interesting that kind of marries up with a question we have from the audience, which is, so now as you're thinking about the future of your company and how to think about supply chain and other issues and employment and other things, how do you estimate the long-term demand? I mean, do you imagine this becomes an annual vaccine a la the flu? And how are you thinking about long-term demand?
Yeah, so it's another conversation I have almost every day, and had today as we're at year end. We're approaching December, and I have a board meeting. You tend to want to provide a budget for next year, and that budget requires a forecast of what you think revenues and expenses are going to be. We don't have a clue. It could be such a wide range in the coming years, and certainly when you go beyond 2022, in a situation where you don't know what the direction of the pandemic is going to go, but you take your best shot. So I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought on the growth issue.
No, it's a really complex question. To try to anticipate demand in the future.
Oh yes,
something so new. It's a complex.
Sorry, thank you. I'm sorry, I lost it. But nevertheless, the point was that so you can take two approaches, and one approach is to say, what is the best case? Best case meaning what is the case where you have likely the most demand, and what's a base case, so you're being cautious about your growth in case the demand's not there. And so different companies will take different approaches. Our approach is to make sure that we are built for the best case. Otherwise, we don't want to be in a situation where we've crawled along in a pandemic and can't make enough doses. And so we'll take the best case approach to planning for the future.
So another question from the audience is, can you tell us about the cost of your vaccine compared to others?
Yes, I don't know if you mean what the cost of production or the pricing of the vaccine. The pricing is going to be in the similar range for high-income countries. What we've decided to do is take the tiered approach to pricing, and so the pricing in high-income countries like the U.S. and Europe and others is going to be roughly similar to what we see in the marketplace. But we've also, as I told you, we've made it a priority of the company to get product out in low and middle income countries. In fact, I think most of our vaccines are going to go to low and middle income countries, at least in the first 6 to 12 months. And there we've got tiered pricing all the way down to low to middle single digit dollars. And so that's going to make it purchasable in low and middle income countries.
You're getting a lot of congratulations from the audience who are impressed with your progress, how quickly you've grown, what you've done. And so I'm not reading you all of those comments, but they're coming in. And then there's a whole group of questions that could be lumped under the, oh my gosh, we're desperate to get this vaccine. When can we have it? And so specifically, we have an audience member that says, I'm in the EU and we are just desperate for this vaccine. How soon do you think we could get it?
Well, part of your audience emails me every day. So I get the question asked from around the world, and I pass it along to my employees just to make sure that they remember that a lot of people think that this is an important vaccine. And that mission's not lost on our company. And so having said that, we have filed with regulatory agencies in 8 different countries, and I think it's going to be globally approved in the coming weeks and months. And then it's a matter of getting enough vaccine. We're making vaccine at very large scale right now, anticipating approvals, and we'll be there as fast as we possibly can.
Well, it's nice. It's nice to have so many people rooting for you, but it's also hard and sad to hear these people who are desperate to get something we're
Yes.
lucky enough to have, right?
Yep.
Which is another question that I'm getting from the audience, which is relating our previous speaker, Bill McInturff, on the vaccine hesitancy that still exists in this country. And, given you've overseen a lot of science, you've been working at this for 10 years, what would you say to help us bust the myths around vaccine hesitancy?
Yeah. So I think the data are clear that all these vaccines are safe, and they are all effective. And if you look at the data beyond what Bill showed us, the data that shows the number of people that have been vaccinated that get hospitalized versus the number of people that haven't been vaccinated and get hospitalized, the numbers are 7 or 8 to 1. I mean, it's the data are so clear that vaccines help. That communication of that point should be made clear, and everybody can help in that. We additionally we might be helping because we bring a vaccine platform, this protein-based vaccine that has a different platform than the mRNAs, and some people may be worried about some aspect of another vaccine that they don't worry about with ours, and so. But in the industry, we're bringing out multiple vaccines, and they all are effective, and the safety profiles are good. So
We have another audience question. They're asking, are you preparing versions of the vaccine that could address different variants?
Yes, great question, because we love that question, because our data shows that our vaccine works well against. In fact, we have some of the only efficacy data that shows it works against the variants that first came out in the UK. Because when we went to the UK and did our trial, we were lucky in that the UK variant was widespread during our trial, and we showed that we had 89% vaccine efficacy against everything, and worked well against the variant. And so what you can also show, and a household name now is the Delta variant. You can also show that your vaccine has the potential to work well by showing you get good antibody levels to the Delta variant. And we've shown in our vaccine trials, and particularly with a boost, we get spectacular levels of antibodies against the Delta variant. So there's possibilities that we could change the vaccine as other variants come along, but right now I don't think we need to. But the platform allows us to make those changes as necessary. Just like in the flu vaccines, they change every year with new variants. And in the long term, we have a flu vaccine that we just had phase 3 efficacy data on a year ago, and we are now in a clinical trial with a combination flu and COVID vaccine. So that when you go in, the goal being that when you go in for your annual flu shot in the future, you'll get a flu COVID shot, and so be effective against both, including variants of those pathogens.
What an amazing feat of science and business. Can you imagine at the beginning of this pandemic that someone would be able to say, we have a vaccine and it's effective against the variants, and kids can get it. And I mean, it's quite a feat of business and science. And we're just really grateful to have companies like yours out there protecting Americans. So thank you for being with us.
Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure.
So thank you all to being with us. We will let you know shortly what our next Path Forward episode will be about. We appreciate you being with us. I hope that you're getting vaccinated. I hope we're giving you tools to help talk to your community and your family about getting vaccinated. And I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. And I know I will be particularly thankful for these vaccines. Take care, and we'll see you soon.